once again to reduce his cabinet to 14 members, reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and lead the prosecution of corrupt leaders. The Islamic leaders believe these actions are crucial in not only cutting down on the resources wastage, but also calming the Gen Z protests.
They are sending a clear message to the president and his government that they are out of touch with a majority of the voters, especially the youth, and the more tragically, they are reminding the president that he has deviated from the his hustler narrative, which enabled him to win an election.
Somebody brings 20 million shillings to a Harambe, 10 million shillings to a Harambe. We can calculate their salaries, how much they have earned for the last 2 years. The first question is to ask, where does this money come from?
The Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims is warning that failing to ease the tension, particularly among the youth, could escalate to anarchy.
The people don't trust the government, or at least the majority of the people don't trust the government. For us to move forward, what we require is that trust and confidence to be rebuilt.
Lazima kuwe na audit ya public debt, ama deni la serikali ni ngapi, ili kuwe na public participation, iwe inclusive, kuwe na transparency na kuwe na accountability.
While urging the Gen Z not to relent in their struggle, Islamic leaders have expressed concern over the infiltration of protests by hooligans.
We have witnessed death, destruction of properties, including of private property, as well as samples of state institutions such as Parliament and the Supreme Court.
Members of Parliament have also been tasked with ensuring that public resources are utilized meaningfully and that wastage is entirely cut.
All these unconstitutional offices that have been set up, they should be dismantled immediately. We are saying that all those refurbishments of State House and other places which are not essential should be cut down.
Wakifanya hizo budget cuts, wasiguse yale mambo yatakayomgusa mwananchi wa kawaida na wasijaribu kuhujumu devolution.
This call to action comes at a time when President William Ruto has promised to meet with Gen Z representatives in a Twitter space on Friday, hoping to resolve the grievances and end the protests. Ben Kirera, K24, Nairobi.
Now, for the first time, President William Ruto appears to be in the country for at least 3 weeks in a row, given his overseas travels almost every other week. This could be attributed to the popular Gen Z demonstrations, which, in addition to focusing on the 2024 finance bill, demanded accountability from the government in the use of public funds. Dan Kaburu reports.
3 weeks of protests in various cities and towns nationwide, coordinated online by Gen Z youth. President William Ruto has been seen to halt his foreign trips, which many Kenyans had begun to identify him with.
I, William Samoei Ruto.
During his 2 years in office, Ruto has traveled abroad 62 times in 38 countries, equivalent to approximately 31 trips per year. The most controversial trip was to the United States of America in May, at the invitation of President Joe Biden, where he used a private jet instead of the national carrier KQ to get to the U.S. The trip was sent to, of course, 200 million Kenya shillings. However, the government defended the trip and the money spent. Due to Ruto's many foreign trips, Kenyans on social media dubbed him the flying president. Ruto's government has further been criticized for misuse of public funds, one of the reasons behind the youth-led protests. Many questions are now emerging among them. Did the president stop traveling due to the youth protest, or has his schedule changed? Dan Kaburu, K24, Nairobi.
Right, from that report by Dan Kaburu, we go to matters tourism. Now, the tourism sector is among the industries heavily affected by the youth-led protest, with various hoteliers experiencing booking cancellations due to the unrest in the country. Now, Tourism Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua has expressed confidence amidst the protest, stating that Kenya is setting ambitious goals for the sector, targeting an annual revenue of 700 billion and will attract 3 million visitors by the end of 2024. Linda Koskei reports.
Despite the assurance from the Tourism Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua that the sector has not been affected by the recent protests, industry players are expressing concern over the declining sector as they record high numbers of booking cancellations. In Naivasha County, Job Gathera, manager at Kentwood Cabins and Camps on the shores of Lake Naivasha, shares his worries.
Tourism sector is doing very well because for quite some time, Kenya has experienced some dry spell, some dry season, and going by the change of weather, the green environment, it has given another touch for the tourists coming to Kenya, and we are finding a lot of enquiries regarding foreigners coming to Kenya.
Employees are also apprehensive about losing their jobs as their employment depends on the number of bookings recorded at the hotel.
Tunaogopa kazi zetu, pia tunaogopa juu wageni wameanza kucancel bookings, so kama hatuna wageni hakuna kazi tunafanya. Sasa kazi zetu bado wakubwa wetu wanaweza tufuta kazi.
One visitor, Wanda Otman from Denmark, mentioned that they are enjoying their tour despite the demonstrations affecting operations in some towns.
I was a bit nervous about it, but luckily the guys I've been with has been very good at calm down and sit, very good explaining what's the protest about and why they're doing it, and it does make sense to me. It makes a lot of sense and put a lot of more calm to me.
It's exciting to learn about why they're protesting, and we've heard a lot about we're with ActionAid, so we're being told a lot about the Kenyan politics and stuff like that. So it feels like we've come at a good time in a way.
In Kilifi County, the situation is similar. July and August are peak seasons, and with the ongoing protests, they risk losing out on their most lucrative time of the year.
Demonstrations could have serious impact in terms of tourism business. But as of now, I can very confidently tell you that we have not had any major cancellations whatsoever. The impact has not been felt as such. However, if it continues, if it is not curtailed in good time, I believe that it will have serious negative effects.
Hoteliers are emphasizing that the security and safety of tourists should be a top priority for the government, as tourism significantly contributes to the country's GDP. They are urging the government to ensure a safe and favorable environment for the industry to thrive. Linda Koskei, K24 TV.
Now, criminal gangs and opportunistic political forces infiltrated, hijacked and took over protests against the Finance Bill 2024 that resulted into loss of lives and property across the country. This was the consensus of a cabinet sitting today in Nairobi that was chaired by President William Ruto. And as Timothy Simwa reports, the cabinet says the security situation is now under control as the government embarks on reforms to address important issues raised by the Kenyan youth.
Walking side by side, cabinet secretaries arrived for one important cabinet meeting at State House, Nairobi. It was time for men and women who ran the Kenya Kwanza administration transformation agenda to reflect after a storm that has left a dent on their performance. The cabinet was briefed on the security situation in the country, which according to official communication shared to newsrooms, is now under control. Despite widespread condemnation of security apparatus on how they handled the protesters, the cabinet was told police officers were professional in their conduct in the most difficult circumstances. The sitting, chaired by President William Ruto, was further informed opportunistic political forces and criminal gangs took advantage of the moment to wreak havoc and destruction. The government is further committing to bring those who perpetrated hooliganism and looting to book, as well as officers who might have acted outside the parameters of the law. Owing to the threat posed to Parliament, the Supreme Court and other critical government infrastructure, the cabinet was informed that all national agencies, including the military, were deployed to forestall the breakdown of law and order. The president further says his administration must now focus on charting a new future for the country, pointing out that significant changes must be made to align with that new future. In the face of calls for reforms within his cabinet, word has it that some cabinet secretaries might be working on borrowed time. Timothy Simwa, K24 TV.
Thank you, Tim, for that report. We are due for another break here on Evening Edition. When we come back, we'll be coming back with more news, including business and sports.
Have you watched K24? We would love to hear from you. Send us your feedback on what you like and what you don't like and why. You can use any platform to reach us. We can be reached on Facebook, SMS, Twitter and WhatsApp.